it's the point at which you can run the company on an Excel sheet. If it flatlines at 10% after D90 and every new cohort flatlines, then you know how much you have to pay, right? So that's a great clue. Okay, so what's PMF? So what I put together is a presentation, and it's got about 30 odd slides. I'll rush through some, I'll spend a fair bit of time on some. Through that, what I want to kind of leave you with, the takeaway is to give you an understanding of what product market fit means. Now, it's a term which is, has multiple interpretations, but over the last few years, I think there is a clearer understanding emerging, and there are various types of definitions, but there's a clearer understanding emerging that it stands for a certain thing, and I'll try and bring that in. B, there is a clearer understanding that product market fit is more likely easier for B2B companies. It's beginning to emerge. And not saying that it won't happen. I mean, it's a little more harder for B2C. It's a bit, B2C is a bit like magic, right? Whereas B2B is logic. So I'll come to what that means and all of that. So I'll try and give you a sense of what product market fit means, how you should think about it, how you should work to achieve it. And I know a lot of you have shared your questions and I've tried to answer them as well. I'll try and give you some signs of what product market fit are, which is like the most frequently kind of asked question in the survey that I did, and thanks for that. Anything, shall I begin? Yeah. So I won't dwell on this slide, but product market fit matters. So why it matters has a lot to do with VCs, because product market fit is a construct invented by VCs. Mark Andreessen popularized it, but before that, this gentleman called Andy Rachleff. Mark thinks he coined it. I don't know, but what it really means and how VCs understand it is as follows. Because VCs are in the business of funding, and each of us has staked ourselves out by stages. So Blume, if you look at us, we are in the seed stage, right? Antler does a lot more pre-seed, and fair to say, right? And then there are larger funds who do Series A and beyond. Some of them also do seed, but typically that's a construct. So each stage tries to defray a certain risk. So for Antlers to defray product risk, which means all of you say, hey, this is interesting me, I want to build something which will solve this issue. And Antler says, we'll give you the capital, we'll give you the resources to get the product out of the way, to get that MVP done. And then you'll go out in the market with that MVP, get some validation, which is 3 customers sign up, 4 pilots, 6 design partners, whatever. And at that point, you can start talking to sometimes fund like Blume, but typically that's where you talk to an IQ or a Waterbridge or whatever. Blume would come in slightly later, like we would want a little bit more validation, like, so we would want to say, you have at least 100K in revenue, okay, then we can talk, okay? But sometimes, depending on the founder profile, we get excited by pre-revenue startups too. So these are the 3 axes. There's a risk axis, there's a funding axis, and then there is a stage axis. So the pre-PMF stage has 2 big risks to defray. Product risk, which is where an Antler comes in to help you get the product off the ground with some validation. 2 is the market risk. So when you come to Blume, you typically say, hey, I've done 30K in revenues, I've got these 3 clients paying 10K, they haven't hit their first renewal yet, and so on and so forth, but this is a problem I'm solving. At that point, we'll say, hey, okay, you got the product, go, and we'll speak to the customers and say, I think there could be a market here. So we're willing to kind of defray that market risk, and that's what we're willing to underwrite, right? And when you defray both these risks, product and market risk, you fundamentally hit product market fit, right? And I'll come to that. Post PMF is Series A growth, and there it's about growth risk. Can I continue scaling? Look, one of the key things I'll tell you is product market fit is not one and done. If you think it is, please ask the people in my space. It seemed unstoppable at one point till Facebook came. Please ask the Paytm wallet product manager what happened. Once UPI came, it just lost ground. So product market fit can come and go. But fundamentally, PMF is a VC defined. And when I talk to founders, a lot of founders, and I found it very funny, the founders sometimes don't explicitly think of product market fit. Should they? That's a good question. But a lot of them tell me, I think about growth and retention. And I don't worry about product market fit. But they're right. Product market fit is an abstraction layer over growth and retention. So that's one of the takeaways you should take from this. Product market fit is fundamentally the VC putting their lens over growth and retention. And fundamentally, if you have great growth and great retention, you, with some unit economics, you fundamentally have product market fit. So in short, you have to dumb it down, that's product market fit. But I'll kind of come to that, else the presentation should be over by now. I'll pause here. So product risk is when MVP is there and MVP is improving and some people are willing to do a pilot, willing to pay a little bit. So that would be, is that my thing? No, okay. That would be like a product risk is done, right? Market risk is when you are unable to get a repeatable sales motion in play. What it means is you got these 3 customers, you came to Blume, we thought you would hit 300, 400K and then we could take you to a series A or, but what's happening is after the design partners this thing, you're not getting a large enough this thing. So what's happening is you have to spend a lot of effort to close a client. So enterprise, for example, takes 6 to 9 months. You're 1 year done and you're not able to close a single account. Mid-market takes 2 to 3 months and it's 6th month and not those mid-market accounts are not closing. They're very expensive. Top of funnel is very expensive to build, right? Like, so that would be a sign. Like for example, the use cases, every time you go to a client, they tell us, oh, one client says security is very important. Another client says, authentication is important. Another client says this. So, the repeatable use cases are not emerging. So all of those are signs that it's going to be a lot of effort to get revenue. So fundamentally, that's what market risk means. Yeah. Effectively, is there a sizable segment that's willing to pay for the product whom you can acquire inexpensively? That's fundamentally product market fit. Okay, so what's PMF? So it's my favorite meme about PMF. This is actually West Delhi, Punjabi Bagh. Yeah, and this tells me like half constructed bridge product, but the need is so great because you're crossing West Delhi, Punjabi Bagh, and if you've ever been in Punjabi Bagh, you'll know how fast they drive. Even like, that's like so Delhi, right? So yeah. So again, I don't expect you to read everything. So I'm writing this playbook about product market fit, and so I got to all of these definitions and collected them, and one day I'll put it in different buckets, etc. But broadly, they're qualitative definitions and quantitative definitions. So, like there's this famous Sean Ellis thing where 40% of your users say, they're not, they'll be unhappy. No, what is that? They'll be like disappointed, severely disappointed if the product goes away. So that's like supposedly one quantitative definition. I actually argue that it's not about PMF, it's about something else. So people say stable retention curve. If your retention curve flatlines within 90 days, that's like PMF. And so on and so forth. Sales yield greater than 1 and so on. So that's quantitative. And then there's qualitative. There's a wonderful one from Elizabeth Ian, which is like, it's like porn. If you see it, you will know it. Or it's like love. If or if you ask for it, then you don't have PMF. So all of these are there. And then there are a little more kind of qualitative, but which are a little more logical, like there's a pull. And that sort of is the most popular thing when I've spoken to founders. Most good founders see PMF as pull, not achieving PMF as push. The point at which becomes easy, resistance. PMF is the point at which you worry about hiring customer success. That's the point at which. So when you're not worried about hiring engineers, product, but you're worried about customer success, like, and you call up your friends, yeah, customer success koi hai kya? Like, and so that's PMF, right? Because you're drowning in demand. So, okay, this is original. So this is my framework. And I think a good way to understand product market fit is not the definition, but a good way to understand product market fit is to see it as two parts. One is and solving the product risk, which is product to problem fit, and I'll come to that. Second is solving the market risk, and for that you need to have motion, GTM motion to market fit. Correct? So this is sort of the stage of a startup. Very early on, look, no one knows what they're doing, right? It's a lot of what's called the drunken walk. I think early stage startups, right, go through a discovery phase, right? And when we invest in super early stage startups, I fundamentally taking a bet on the founder, right? And then every 2 weeks it changes, and that's fine, right? And so it's sort of this phase, and finally you kind of hit a broad match between the problem you want to solve and the solution or the product. But you got to start problem first. You got to start a problem first. We'll come to that. And then you got to figure out a solution which broadly aligns with the problem, right? And when it reliably solves that, when like the fourth customer who had the problem is saying, great product, and they're consistently saying, fantastic, this works. Usage is high, engagement is high, then you know you hit PPF. We'll come to the mathematical scientific definition for that. Then comes, and this is the stage at which like Blume starts looking at people. Like, and I look at people, I basically look for, have they got PPF? Like, then motion to market fit. Take two cases, two examples. Let's take B2C. So there's someone who's thought of magic cure for acne and says, I'm going to kind of create this product, which is kind of a pill for acne. Everyone puts a cream, but I think it's to do with some other issues like insulin resistance and all that. So for a certain percentage of the population, they don't need to put topical solution or treatment. They need to actually do diet or some magic medicine, right? And I'm like this biochemist who's come out of whatever, right? UCLA or something, and I've kind of launched this product. That's so the problem is customers who have acne. The persona is for those people who have acne which can be solved through diet, okay? And the product is a tablet that you take, right? So now it's beginning to solve. You've run these 40, 50 people and they're just loving it. Acne has disappeared. Like, just bear with me. It's a completely fictional thing. There's no such thing. But it's magic, right? And it's at that stage, and let's say it's an Antler portfolio company and say Nandini will whisper in my ears like, hey, Sajith, you want to meet this? Love it. Like, and go and meet. At that point, the trials are done, the product is there, the designs look fabulous, all of that. But this founder, she needs to kind of get her product into the market, right? And she needs to figure out what the motion is. So at that point, you're clear on what your persona is. Your persona is those people for whom diet is an issue, and so this can solve it. So maybe the founder is very smart, has been creating great content, right? And through that content, she's able to get more and more adopters. And this great word of mouth, people just seem to love it. Like, people are telling other people, this is like magic. It worked for me, it worked for you too. Another thing is that she ties up with dermats. Another thing is she uses performance marketing. All of these are channels. She got to figure out what is a scalable channel, right? A scalable channel where the value she gets from the customer who's coming in is less than what it takes to acquire the customer on a reliable basis. So can you predictably find similar people with problems who will readily buy this product? And can you do it repeatedly, right? So you will start hearing these words, repeatedly, predictably. Product market fit is all of these. Unit economic positive, right? Like, if it is hard to figure out who the next 100 customers are, if it's so expensive to get them, if it is like you're struggling to do it again and again, that's not product market fit. So, and then once you hit motion to market fit, then you can keep scaling. So when you hit motion market fit, you hit PMF. At that point, fundamentally, another way to define PMF is, I defined it as growth and retention earlier. So my colleague Arpit kind of had this definition that it's the point at which you can run the company on an Excel sheet. You keep adding more money, and like there's this thing, right? The best stories are told in like Excel, Microsoft Excel, not Word, which is true. So when you look at that Excel and you keep showing that this growth like this, right? And PMF is a point at which that logic, like almost like a founder can say that if I keep increasing the input, the output will grow almost predictably, like linearly, you know. So that's sort of fun. Yeah. So this is the equation, mathematical equation. So just read it. So here's where you can actually use Sean Ellis's that Sean Ellis test, as it's called, where you send a survey, one question survey. If this product went away tomorrow, would you be severely disappointed, mildly disappointed, wouldn't care, like, you know? And then you see how much of the 40% has, each time you do the survey, you keep doing the survey. Every month you do the survey. And at a certain point, you'll see that it's 43, 44% would really like hate to see the product go away, right? That is a point at which you can, and then you tie up with, see, that again, I mean, you can't take one test, but you broadly have a sense that people are liking it, you're getting feedback, people are saying, like, you know, a lot of people, sometimes people are complaining, like, oh, this issue, that means people care. The worst thing is when people don't say anything, right? Like, and people, so that gives you a sense that there's something here, I'm solving this problem, right? Every few customers are on board, like if I'm a B2B, I'm onboarding beta customers or design partners, or I'm actually intentionally giving it to a few people. They all seem to kind of love it. So that would be a sign. So if you were to ask me one thing, the Sean Ellis test would be that, would be a predictable marker. I also have, I'll actually, I think I have it. Yeah, here it is. So focus on three areas: align persona, problem, and product, which I covered earlier. And I'll come to Delta 4. Yeah. So these are signals that you can do for PPF, like Sean Ellis test. Then the signal should be high engagement usage. Retention curve is something that's more relevant for MMF, but like if you're if you're consistently seeing the retention curve flatline, like, and that means a lot. So the thing is, retention curve flatline gives you a clue as to how much you can spend for a customer. If it flatlines at 10% after D90 and every new cohort flatlines, then you know how much you have to pay, right? So that's a great clue. Speed through the funnel for B2B. Now I give you a B2C example of the acne product. Imagine a B2B product for, I don't know, like, you know, take any example you want. Maybe it solves security problems for mid-market companies, God knows, like, you know. So, so for this company, if it's mid-market, if it's taking more time, then there's a little bit of a worry. Then are customers not seeing the benefit? So there's a concern. Second, if the inflow of new customers, there's a lot of word of mouth, referrals, organic channels, inbounds, that's a good sign. Broadly, usage is something you can look at. The customers that you've onboarded, are they using the product? Or are they like not using the product? Like, you know, so those are all signs. Yeah, I had this tweet that don't worry about India market fit, not Indranagar market fit. But yeah, but yeah. So yeah. So how do you worry? So Girish Mathrubootham, I think, introduced this wonderful phrase, more relevant for B2B, called stranger MRR or stranger ARR. So what it means is, and that's something we look at. We look at like, you got 70K. Okay, so who are these clients? Like, this. Then look at, how did you get this thing? It says, oh yeah, so this son I went to college with, and he's now this. So I would say like stranger MRR or stranger ARR matters a lot, and that is sort of how. And I'm giving you all the secrets that VCs do, but we look at some of these things, right? So someone has 150K revenue, 120K is from one client, and this client is actually related to his father's thing, whatever. No, that's not fair. So in fact, Shekhar Kirani, and there was this wonderful story in actually Girish Mathrubootam's podcast with Blume. So Shekhar says, and I don't necessarily agree with this, but he says, Girish, I knew you at PMF because I saw you had some 30-40 clients who were all paying $2,000 and you didn't know any of them. They were in Australia, they were in US, etc. And whereas this other company I was looking at, he had 70K, it was like 4x your ARR or whatever. But he had, most of it was from one client and who he had gone to college with. So I would say stranger MRR, if it's organic coming from people who you don't know, those would be. Does it answer your question? Those would be. See, finally, look. End of the day, So you're running. Every startup is an experiment in pursuit of a truth. Don't lie to yourself, because, and I'll come to the pick and why you shouldn't. You're going to invest the next 4 years of your life at least. 2 years if you just decide to shut it down one day. 4 or 5 years if it goes through an acqui-hire. 8-10 years if it really does well. And sometimes you will end up into this zombie mode where, it's like liquid oxygen. This will be this famous joke by this guy called Ajit. I think that also dates me because it's like a 70s kind of era actor who said, "Isko liquid oxygen mein dal do, liquid se jeene nahi dega, oxygen, oxygen se marne nahi dega." So sort of no get into this liquid oxygen mode because it's the hardest. Business is doing just enough to not let you shut it down, but it's also sucking away your life's best years. But so you're in the business of truth. So don't lie to yourself. So if you're creating a Me Too product, that's what I'm saying, no one thing. You should look at multiple signals. So similar to this, I was talking to the founder about hair on fire, and he was saying there's no hair on fire now, because we are in a post-SaaS world. There's a SaaS solution for everything that's built. There's no company which is a real hair on fire unless it's got a cyber attack. Other than short of that, no one has hair on fire. So we are in a post-hair on fire world. And similarly, we are in a multiple competitor world. So it's a great question. So marry the strong analyst test with multiple other things. Okay. But the truth is, you are in the business of seeking truth as founders. So ask yourself, why am I building a Me Too product? Okay. When something else, how am I different? And that brings me to, So delta 4 or not, right? So I'll explain what delta 4 means. Delta 4 actually is Kunal. You can Google it. Kunal Shah, the kind of the patron saint of startups or the guru of Indranagar, whatever, sage of the startup valley. So he had this. It's a great concept, delta 4, and what it means is have two alternatives. You rank it on delight. Most popular example he gives is booking a cab. Before Uber, how did you book a cab and what was it? It will be like 2 on 10, right? You'll have to go to one particular place where the autos are standing, negotiate with them, beg them, and then they'll say, get lost, whatever. Versus booking an Uber. Now that, despite the security issues, whatever, it'll be 8 to 9 on 10, maybe 10 on 10. So it's like delta 6, okay? Booking a ticket, same movie ticket, right? It's all delta 4 plus. Once it's delta 4, even if you have one bad experience, you'll not go back. It's brag-worthy and so on and so forth, right? So delta 4 is a perspective that you should enshrine in your product. If your product is not delta 4, people won't care. But let's say in quick commerce, I don't know, you did quick commerce for God knows, some product which is I'm not able to think of it, right? And that product no one else is giving. That would be something. Or let's say quick commerce, let's think about it. Actually, there's someone building this. Quick commerce for cooks. It's like Badli, right? Suddenly the cook calls up at 8 o'clock saying, Aaj nahi aa raha. And the woman, normally the woman who bears the burden, it's like, what the fuck? I have to get out of the house now, And then you press a button and suddenly Badli comes, in 10 minutes, and that's magic, right? So, so what I'm saying is you've got to really build delta 4 into your product. So so I don't know, those who are technical would understand this. There is a trade-off you can do between hardware and software. To get performant, you can overbuild your hardware. You can invest a lot in the hardware so that software does less lifting. Or you can have very basic hardware where software has to do the heavy lifting. For example, Windows. Hardware is basic, the software has to do a lot of heavy lifting, which the performance suffers. Whereas Mac, the hardware is custom designed, silicon. So the software doesn't have to do as much heavy lifting, better performance. The same way, there's a trade-off you have to do between PPF and MMF. If you're in vertical SaaS, you got to overbuild PPF. MMF, you can't overdo MMF because there are only so many clients in a city. You'll burn through the clients if you do aggressive marketing, right? If you are, for example, super early in a product in B2B, you can't overbuild. Like Front couldn't overbuild PPF. They said, we don't know what this could be. We have to let the customer evolve. What the customer says, we'll do it. So they had to, maybe you could argue that's part 2 of PPF, but they had to kind of do both in between. The only way they would get more customers to talk to us to keep the customer acquisition machine going, right? So you got to understand where the trade-off is, and that is sort of what you and your VC or you really have to kind of decide where I want to kind of focus on. So yeah, I think we come to you now. My apologies. Yeah.
So if your solution is supposed to be used like 2-3 times only in lifetime, let's say for example fertility solutions, what are some of the signals which can help you to understand your PPF or MMF?
Oh. Yeah, so these are hard categories, like you're playing in hard mode. Like, so you're saying once in a year it will be used, okay? Now making me think. So I would say ideally you should not get into the category because frequency matters a lot and this. But I would say that you really have to talk to customers very early on, and because you have one shot with that customer, and so you would have to overbuild PPF very early on, do a lot of problem discovery and problem validation, and then launch the product. But I would say word of mouth would be key thing because it's used once in a thing, and customer has to absolutely love. So something around weddings, let's say, okay. So let's say there is a product which is okay. Like hashtag. Anyone can get a hashtag wedding app done, and that wedding app will let customers interact with your guests interact with each other. Boy side, girl side meets. Like they can XYZ, right? So it's like a temporary social network which gets built like magic. All people have button press, like their hashtag app is available on the app store and so on and so forth. It's a magical product, but it's likely to be used once, right? So it has to then be completely wow, and it has to have very high delight, customer delight, and trying for a friend, I think. But it's a great question. I'll think over it. And if I can think of something more better, I would think. But I would say that I think most VCs will have this as a fundamental challenge. And I think the other thing is, are customers paying for it? You can't definitely give it. How much are they paying for it? That would be a very clear sign, and your ability to charge more and people, that would be a very clear sign. Yeah, so I'll kind of move. So where were we? So this is the equation. So at each stage, you got to figure out certain priorities. Here, you got to have a very deep understanding of customer pain and the problem. You got to always start problem first. Build the MVP fast and iterate. The speed of iteration is the single biggest decisive differentiating factor between a founder who gets it and moves to PMF and a founder who doesn't. You are in the business of speaking truth to yourself. To speak truth to yourself, you have to put your product out and hear uncomfortable conversations, right? Don't get friend zoned. Right, and sort of not my original. There's a founders. I forgot who the founder is, but in life, don't get friend zoned with this customer. That's a worst situation you can be in. You've got to actively seek feedback and hear what is, and sort of hearing the uncomfortable truth, which leads you to kind of quickly build, iterate, is what matters here. Second here is, here you got to figure out the GTM motion, what matters, and you got to figure out that there's typically 1.5 channels that work for you, and you got to figure out what the one is, what the half is. You're lucky if you have more than 2, but typically you have one hero channel, and because that aligns with your proposition, that aligns with your persona, that aligns with your product, they all come together. There's a saying that strategy is a set of interconnected choices with intentional trade-offs that give you a relative advantage to the competitor. this entire thing you're doing is actually a set of interconnected choices, and a lot of it is fiddling with those knobs and dials till you get everything high fidelity, right? So you have to continuously keep iterating. So I think this will be available. Motion to market fit, and after this I'll take questions. Yeah, so motion to market fit, what do you want to achieve? You want to make sure that your GTM motion is scalable, which means I put 20 lakhs, I get 100 lakhs output. If I put 40, will I get 200 or 160, 180? Is it scalable? That matters. Okay, so you need scalable channels. Performance marketing is a scalable but not compounding channel, right? So Ultra Human in our portfolio tried performance marketing and doesn't use performance marketing. They use compounding channels like YouTube and working with influencers, etc. So you got to figure out ideally. Look, performance marketing is like a drug, so you got to be careful. But maybe if you're performance marketing, then supplement with content, which is the other half, like 1.5, right? Be careful about channel saturation. Channel saturation is the enemy of scalable channels. Retention or repeats? Here you go. Yeah, barring one-off products. Strive to ensure repeatability. Repeatability is critical. Are the customers coming back? Is the cohort retained? Okay. Finally, are you like spending more to acquire customers? So try and get to CM2 positive. If you're not CM2 positive, and I've written about this, if you're not CM2 positive, that means that contribution margin will not grow to cover your fixed cost and will never become profitable. B2C product 100 to 200, you should not spend. Up to 500, you should up to 200, 300, you should not spend. Beyond that, if you're seeing utter delight, then you can start spending. But 100, 200, you should be able to get on your own. Own means ask friends to recommend, put a Google form, tweet, and so on and so forth. You should use content. People will land up go on Twitter, see what people are commenting. If it's a product, the problem that your product is solving, then comment on there, and get. So do a lot of manual thing early on, like what Paul Graham says, do things that don't scale. That's what you do early on, because see, one of the things that kills startups is premature scaling, which means before you hit PPF, you try all the stunts of MMF. The danger is you acquire the wrong kind of customers. And please understand, till the PPF stage, almost till 70% of the PPF stage, your goal is to learn, not to earn. Your goal is not to grow revenue. Your goal is to learn who are the customers who are right for me. Who are the customers who won't take me? Why do customers take me? What use case does this get triggered? So all of those matters, So what you're trying to understand is all of this, which helps you refine the persona, use case, context, which improves your GTM motion. For example, one of my portfolio companies, they tried performance marketing. They didn't kill themselves. Actually, they found performance marketing doesn't work. What works is events. So they said, we'll attend every single event and in the US, and every single event gives them 100K ARR. Now, this is very interesting. What's the constraint on events? Constraint on events is founder travel, because no one else in the team has visas. So now he hires people who have US visa. You would think but it's bizarre, right? It's an enabling factor. Now he's actually reached out to me saying, Sajith, how do we get people who have US visas and how do we poach them? I said, that's okay. So those are the kind of things you won't know it. And so you should scale a channel only when you have high degree of PPF and you've learned a lot. And that too starts slow. Does that help? So there's something called use case. I haven't put it here. So you also have to worry, what is the use case in which brand consumption is triggered, right? That matters a lot. So you got to understand who the customers are. If you have a lot of customers on top of the funnel, which means there's a process by which they have to come mid funnel and bottom of the funnel at which I can pick them off, right? So if your product has a use case context, then you got to figure out the watering hole where they land up or what actions precede. For example, I'm just thinking, there's a like let's take this hypothetical case of an app, which is a wedding app or something like that, right? What is the preceding thing? How do you know? Like maybe you go to wedding photographers and say, who all have hired you? Okay, acha, these 30 people hired me. Give me, here's 50,000 rupees. Give me the list. Or you tie up with them, send them a mail saying what I'll reach out. So use what is the trigger which leads to this. So you got to have a deep understanding of the trigger. So the reason the trigger matters is otherwise you'll spend a lot of money on top of the funnel. Like you'll reach people who say, next year I'll do it, right? You know. So you got to figure out at some point you'll need to cultivate that also. You can't only take care of bottom of the funnel, but that's a later thing. Is that clear? Yeah, Science of MMF. Just read it for B2B and B2C. Just read it. It's a lot. But fundamentally, MMF is where you get into the science. I'm not saying PPF is not art, not science. It's a little bit of art because you got to figure out what customer feedback is, etc. So I'll now come to there's some hard truths. PMF in B2B is easier because you're sitting with the customer. In consumer, you're not sitting with the consumer. You directly hear it from the customer who has a pain point. Secondly, it's very clear why they're buying your product. Like Comet shoes, like a cool brand, or Freakin's jeans which you invested in. Why are people buying it? I have no clue. Like obviously people like it. They'll say the material is really soft. A baby can wear it, and all that you can say. Korean pants are very cool and they've got it, whatever. But I don't know. Whereas if they're buying ID5 for verification, I know exactly why they're buying it, right? So second, PMF is easier for certain categories, and that's an unfair thing. You got to pick the categories well. And my learning here, and this is really important because a lot of you, I'll come to this later. So this is like a meta, there's something called the pick. Sorry. Sorry. I'll come to something called the pick. You got to pick your space very well, carefully. If you don't pick the space very well, you will have to struggle. For example, if some of you have kids, whatever, don't get your kids to do badminton. Even if Prakash Padukone comes and stands out at your house, get them to play tennis, because the 50th ranked tennis player will make more money than the first ranked badminton player, right? So where you play matters a lot. So today, if you launch in EdTech, it's like pulling teeth, right? You might as well go for a root canal than go for like a VC pitch. It's hard, right? So, but of course, or you figure out a problem that is so critical and nobody's solving it at 3-4 years later. When the cycle turns, you look like wow, such a contrarian guy, zigged when others zagged and all that, So what I want to tell you is before PMF and the pick matters. So pick is not my original term. I stole it, and the person who invented it is a person called Josh Koppelman, first round capital. So very interesting. What he says is most founders spend less than 5% of their time on idea selection, but it's actually the most critical thing. Look at it this way. I'm a VC. I pick 2 to 3 investments a year, 8 to 9 a fund. By the time my partner is wise enough to say ki boss ka picks are all disaster or the picks are all great, I've done 15 of them, right? So, but the founders who I picked, they can only do one at a time, right? So they're devoting their lives to it. So suppose it doesn't do well very early on, then 2 years are gone. It takes that much time to figure out that it's not working. If it does half okay, you get an acqui-hire, 4 years are gone. If it does really well, 8 to 10 years of your life are gone, committed. Hopefully you'll make some money, lot of money. So what I want to say is, suppose one doesn't do well, you have one more shot. After 2 quick failures, even the VC will say, very good, yeah, very good. There's a portfolio company hiring. Will you take a look at them? So what I want to say is you have anywhere from 2 to 4 picks as a founder. If you're a VC, or you can come this side and take Hajar picks, not Hajar, but So your picks matter a lot. And because the pick is anywhere from 2 if it's really bad, but 4 to 10, 8 years, 10 years of your life, make them count. Also because the pick matters so much on PPF and MMF. The pick has a disproportionate influence. Like the sector of frequencies once a year. Why? Unless it's such a passionate thing you want to solve, like why? Like, pick something which is better. Spend a lot more time on that. So look at this. I want to talk about this. It works at Carbon Health. So after the startup, Nigerian founder, YC backed startup, failed, joined Square, did very well there, and then joined Carbon Health now. So it's done well. So he says, he picked a technically interesting problem, but didn't work. So lesson I took from it is he put so much effort into the actual work, not put nearly enough effort into choosing what to work on. And he says something very interesting. He says like Nigeria is like a India only. Like he says like when you're a good student, you're told work hard. And you're given a script, you're given something, you work hard, you typically crack it, you get into a good engineering college, good whatever, right? Commerce college. So your effort is correlated to your outcome. But PMF and startups are not like that. You could be running very hard in the wrong direction. So direction matters a lot, and PMF is like direction. Like let's say you want to go from Bangalore, from here to the airport, then you got to make sure you're in the right direction, right? Else you'll hit electronic city, and so PMF is like, are you getting the direction right? Are you nailed it before you can scale it? Before I pour in the fuel and accelerate, am I in the right direction? So the life is not like an exam. You can't out effort it. You got to put, like for example, for example, Class Plus. I've done very little help for Class Plus. They got to product market fit very easily, and they've repeatedly found new S curves. There is, for example, like Chef Cart, and I'm being candid. That has been a little bit more of a challenge because it's not a Delta 4 product, because there's already cooks coming home. So when they send like a cook, if the cook doesn't work, people say, oh, so there's a base comparison level, etc. So it's been a harder category to get product market fit in. So you have to figure out something like a Delta 4, which is replacement badly. So the point I'm trying to say is where you choose to play matters more than how you play. And my request to you is think through this, those who haven't decided. Think through this very carefully. So the 3 ways to arrive at the pick. Personal pain. I worked in Clever Tap. And in Clever Tap, I found that these are the issues in customer success. So I want to build something which solves that. Or onboarding mein ye pain tha. Or we found that churn hota tha, and this is the way to solve churn. Like it's a personal pain to me. Or like, for example, Launch Darkly. Edith Harbour, it's a DevTools product. She found out that staging was consistently getting screwed up where she worked. And then she found like Facebook had like something called Gandalf, which was their staging software. So, and she said, there's nothing for mid-sized companies or even larger companies which don't have the technical this thing. And she started Launch Darkly. Second, it's not born out of personal pain, but you and 2 others were your co-founders sat and brainstormed. These are hot sectors. The climate hot here. VCs are just funding it left, right, and center. And fintech. This is hot. That is not hot. ABBA is very cool. Let's write down ABBA. So you brainstorm. Then you talk to other people, etc. Finally, let's say you started a company basis one of these 2, and then after some time, it's not working out. But yeah, this one feature is working. So so there's an app called Bourbon. BURBN. And it's a location app and nobody's using it. But there's one feature in that. There's a way to add your photograph to a location, and you can actually put cool filters. And that seems to be working. And voila, they bundle it out and Instagram is born, right? So Glitch is a game which is not going anywhere. But as usual, developers have built this amazing communication tool internally. And they decide, screw Glitch, bundle this out, and that becomes Slack. So that's an example of what is called pivoting to a pick. So there are 3 ways, and if the first one is fine, like born out of personal pain, then you make sure that it is something that that is really big, and that the market values. The second one, you have to make sure that the problem is big enough, and so I've kind of got this. So there are two phases in the three picks: the problem discovery phase and the problem validation phase. And there's a lot of Angrezi here, but pick via pain. The problem discovery is sorted. You know what you want to work on. You want to just refine it a little bit, but you don't need to spend a lot of time. And then, but you have to validate the problem. Is it big? Is this a large enough market, or is it like, will I get PMF in a market of 100? Like, so, or fine to begin with, but can I expand into adjacencies? Pick where prospecting. Here you need to spend time. And I tell the founders who come to us for incubation stage, we don't do too many incubations, but once in a while we may do. Take your time. This is something going to commit months, years of your life. Take months here. Like, don't take weeks. Like, take 4, 5, 6, 7 months. Slow down. Like, So do it as a service to begin with to see if you like it. But don't rush into it. You rush into it, you'll pay the price. Pick where pivoting. Yeah, this is clear. Like, so I think so. You got to figure out how much time. And I'm saying there's no and here it may be very controversial. I hope I'm not saying anything wrong, whatever. But do spend time here. So I mentioned, right, at the PPF stage, you're aligning problem, persona, and product. Very critical. So your problem discovery is kind of thing, but these other two matter too. Because if you look at it, your product is borrowed, the JTBD framework, to solve a particular problem at a particular point in time, in a use case or a context, right? So hence, I would say, like for example, a protein bar is hired to solve a on-the-go healthy eating, okay, and it is borrowed for that. If I have time, I would much rather have the real thing. I would probably go and have a healthy salad and a meal, right? So it's to solve a use case for a persona. The persona is the same. Depending on the use case, they either hire a salad, home food, or a protein bar. So you've got to kind of figure that out. So protein bar could be kept at on-the-go places, or like, I don't know, like, or quick commerce, like wherever you are, press the button press, Blinkit will deliver a protein bar to you, or whatever, like Zomato will deliver, whatever, I don't know, like, So I feel like there's a lot of, that's one thing, refining, narrowing the problem to a specific sub-problem, and I should have put persona, clarity on persona, and use case in which the product is consumed, the problem is highest, is important. Like for example, chef cart, like if you want a maid, the real delta 4 is badly made. Like I want like now, because like I've got to leave for office and have a meeting, and someone like that, right? This one, or daycare, like button press high quality daycare, like so like I expected the daycare, which is not come because of some strike or whatever, but I have to go to office, or I have to kind of do something, and like so I think you've got to understanding that urgency. That's where you spend a lot more time. So in your case, I would say what you're really looking for is, what are the contours of the problem? Is the problem that likely to be a service? Is it a product? How much personal involvement? How much service? Is it or for example, should I solve the problem through a group? I create a group of people, and I don't know. Like, is it fitness? Is it diet? Is it both? What fitness? So a lot of the work that you do here, a lot of the understanding, a lot of the why does it work for some people? Why doesn't it work for some people? Right? With the people who have worked, why has it worked? That will give you a lot more understanding. See, pick PPF, MMF. The more work you do upstream, the lesser work you have to do below. But the first principles are as follows. Services revenue is fine. It depends on the category. If you're enterprise, 200K account, and you have 15, 18, 20, 40K services, and it locks in the 200K, hell, what's wrong with it, right? Like, if the customer, see, I think we have to now move beyond SaaS. We are moving to a post-SaaS world, post-AI world, where we are moving beyond seat-based pricing to outcome-based pricing. So as part of that, I think services is fine. A good VC, and if you're talking about the top 10, 15 VCs, they all understand that, look, there is a services component. Even large brands have services, this thing. It is okay, like, so I don't think it's a worry at all. So all I'm saying is, like, look at it this way. It's a 200K account, 30, 40, 50, 60 is one time, okay, I understand. If it is repeated, I'm okay with it also, because, but if it's majority services, like, and if it's continuously like that, so, and you want to ask her why, like, so I'll probably double click and ask why. More than 40% on a sustained basis is like, why? Like, can't you productize some of those services? Because services, end of the day, when you look at first principle startups, the best startups have zero marginal cost of serving the next customer. Like Mark Zuckerberg is not sitting and writing one line of code every new person signs into threads. And the next, and even better, the marginal cost of acquiring the next customer is zero. Network effects product, right? So the second one, I think we're all given up on, that very few products have genuinely the marginal cost of acquiring the next customer is zero. ऐसा तो India में तो है ही नहीं, like, maybe there'll be one day. But the first one can't be non-trivial. It can't be so high that, you can services, the cost of serving the next customer is much higher. So that's the logic why VCs don't like services businesses. When you scale, like, your costs also scale continuously. But I don't think it's such an issue early on, and so long as you don't exceed 33%, it's fine, I guess. Yeah, I think a lot of VCs do give a lot of feedback, which is to make it palatable. It's like they don't want to say no, or they want to give a very intelligent way to say no. So they'll say things like, "Hey, TAM bahut chota hai." Like, it's not right now, boss. Like, just hit 100K more and you come, we'll look at it. Third is PMF. So it's very hard to say, na? Like, after founder, like, and he'll say PMF mein ye nahi tha, wo nahi tha. So I think you got to understand that, like, sometimes VCs may use PMF. You got to ask them, what do you mean by that? Like, double click. But your specific question is, why do VCs not make an educated guess? See, I think most VCs know whether they want to invest or not, because I've written about this. See, at any point in time, like, every 6 months, I invest in 2 to 3 startups a year. So typically, once I invest in a startup, then I got to space it out, because I got to give time, etc. Now, when good startup comes, maybe I would have invested in it if I had already invested. Now, how do I tell you no? So sometimes I am honest and tell them, look, I've just invested in one. You're good, but I don't think it's the right time for me. But not every VC may want to say that. Some VCs may want to give very palatable answers. Aapka ye nahi aaya, wo nahi aaya. So that is the truth. So I mean, there, like, yeah, like, so there are two schools of thought. And I would say that I lean towards one, but let me share out the two schools of thought. The first school of thought says, do whatever it takes to quickly get customer feedback. And sometimes in certain categories, it's hard to kind of get customer feedback without giving freebies and things like that. And that's okay. The second says, is your product not solving a deep pain for the customer? If your product is not solving a deep pain for the customer and they're not willing to pay for it, that means it's not true, this thing. Iterate on the product, iterate on the problem till you get that combination of product, persona, problem where customer says, take my money. Like, that I find I'm more partial towards that, but there are not too many situations. So it's a Puritan's approach to PMF. And over time, I've realized that I have to be accommodative. Sometimes it's hard to kind of get that feedback from customers without giving some of these. So I think it's a trade-off. It finally depends on how much you've raised. If your product is in a deep area and you've done a lot of discovery, and it's a real problem for people, right? 2, I know that there's nothing like this exists. If I just give the product, people will just lap it up. That's my hypothesis. Then be true to that hypothesis and say, why is my product not being lapped up? What change at the back end will make this product lapped up? That's the angle. So it depends on all of these factors. Earlier the stage, worry about satisfaction, delight, engagement, right? Then you worry about, am I able to acquire more customers? Is there some early MMF motion that gets more customers? Final stage, worry about efficiency. But it's not like you don't worry about efficiency at all early. So 10% of efficiency you build at. So I would say, so in fact, there's also this framework called PMF method by first round. Basically says there are these three dimensions. One is they call it satisfaction, demand, and efficiency. Okay, super early stage, 80% like 80-90% satisfaction, 10% or 20% demand, zero efficiency. Middle stage, 60-70% satisfaction, 30% demand, or 40-40-20. And final stage, satisfaction is assured, you don't worry about it, it's called a founder time. Then demand is more important, right? Like the final stage. So this is sort of how we have to kind of navigate. Yeah. See, with deep tech, what happens is, especially like Ethereal, we had a portfolio coming, Ethereal, it took a long time to break out. So you got to look, you got to break it down into signals. Like for example, uh, typically there has to be a very deep this thing that if this product is available, it will succeed. Okay, broadly. Okay, do you building the product itself is a stage, and deep tech VCs understand that market risk is, it's okay, like it's like it's something that they understand. See, it's, I won't do deep tech, my colleague Arpit does deep tech, so his PMF is different from my PMF. His PMF doesn't have demand elements. His PMF is like all, and these signals, like for example, also things like for example, how you stage the prototype. Like, is there a way to build MVP? Take for example the most critical feature. Like for example, there's a robo, and robo is supposed to do A, B, C, D, E in action. But we know that C is the hardest part, right? So, for example, if you got to make a monkey do a somersault on a pedestal, monkey doing somersault is the hardest part, right? Pedestal तो कुछ भी हो सकता है, ये भी हो सकता है, it could be a marble pedestal. You don't build a marble pedestal or a gold pedestal carved out, right? And say, you'll say, let me train the monkey to do somersault. That's a harder thing. The same way in A, B, C, D, E, C is the hardest. So, is there a way for me to validate that C and try it out? So, take an existing product, cobble together A, B, C, D, or A, B, and D, E. C मैं दूंगा, and C works with A, B, D. So I can build A, B, D. So that would be a way. And maybe if you have very little money, start selling C only. Like, so there are ways in which you'll have to break down, and so fundamentally coming down to the customer wants an outcome. Am I able to deliver the outcome to the customer and build a machine by which I pay less to deliver that outcome repeatedly? That's PMF. So yeah, B2B Delta 4 would be there. It's a good question. I'll try and take what could be examples. Canva was Delta 4. It's not Canva. Vanta. Vanta was Delta 4. Vanta is very interesting. Christina Cacioppo was the founder. So she she quit Dropbox and she was tooling around. She's also a VC, Union Square Ventures. So VCs who founded up. So she experimented with a lot of different ideas, and she was doing these user discovery sessions, and she was talking to some people, and I think she asked like, what is the biggest pain point in your life now? So two of them said, boss, this is security thing we have to put together because some certification is required. Oh man, it's like the worst thing in my life. I would much rather do coding, but I want to do all of these things. And she then built out this Excel sheet. She didn't build the product out. Huh? The first three clients were on Excel sheets. The first three companies were, one was Front, I think the other was Segment, I think. Oh yeah. So like anyway, so she built on an Excel sheet and just productized the thing. And one day she actually got a call from saying, hey, I heard like you become some SOC 2 consultant, interesting life choice, should meet up for a drink, and like, because she was a very promising PM at Dropbox and this thing. We should really chat on what happened, but meanwhile, can you do the SOC 2 for me? Like, my company also needs. That's Delta 4. like, so that would be an example. There are many cases like ironclad, like no, actually ironclad is another thing, but we'll come together. Like Retool is Delta 4. The Retool, they reached out to Rapi. The Rapi CTO replied back in 10 minutes saying, like, I really like this thing. When can we get on a like something like that? I really like this product, and ask some questions. And they said, hey, we'd love to tell you. Can we get on a call next week? He said, what about now? Like, that's like Delta 4. Like Retool is basically tools for internal tools for this thing. So that's Delta 4. So enough examples of B2B, but like B2B Delta 4 will be like, how fast can we do this? Can we do a pilot right away? Like, so things like that. Yeah. So I'm not a deep tech VC, to be honest. Is a question better off asked to a deep tech VC like Pi Ventures or like, other folks who do deep tech. Arpit from Blume would be a good person. He's in Vipassana right now, but yeah, if it's important enough, you can reach Hyderabad and ask him. But yeah, you can wait for the next week. So I think, look, subscription is good, right? Subscription is good. From a common sense perspective, it tells me that if you have a customer who's paying for subscription, he finds a lot of value in the product. So try and engineer it to get subscription revenue. But you don't try to square the circle. If your product inherently doesn't lend it to subscription, don't throw that in. But service component, hey, we'll do some servicing and stuff like that. No harm in it. I think it's a good thing. Yeah. 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 I think my single biggest takeaway is pick a problem, pick a space that has what I call slant, right? Slant is it rolls downhill and not like Sisyphus pushing it uphill. For example, this category has tailwinds, right? Customers have a budget. So in B2B, you know that if your customer doesn't have a budget for this, it's difficult to kind of stay. For example, school SaaS. Once a year, everything happens in August, September. Toddle, vertical SaaS. Everything is down to that 1 month. So there are inherently challenging stuff. But once it converts, it's locked in, right? So each space has, do you have an unfair advantage? Like, what is your unfair advantage, right? Like to work in that space. What's your right to win? Is it an attack route, or is it like, is there a wedge to kind of get in, or like email? It's a nightmare. If you want to launch one email is a very tough basic product to build. So you got to think through. So front is actually email, but they came through a very different route, shared inbox and all that. But today they're like an email client, and so on and so forth. I think I'm almost done. I'll just quickly go over last few. I'll just rush over this, but the deck is there. See, in PMF, right, at a certain point, you may have challenges on PMF. So the way you got to do is the GTM motion part, right, has 3 components. There's a persona who the ICP, then there is and sometimes within that there may be an economical buyer. There's an economic buyer and the user persona. So there is a persona, there is a channel, and there's a message. So the way you need to work through is you can iterate on the message first. Okay, it's easier. Then you can change the channel. As you get into persona, it's like changing hardware stack, right? It's like changing like this thing. It's harder to change the product because that means like 6-9 months more will go. So you got to be very careful. That's what I'm saying. Get the PPF right before you go to MMF. Rushing into MMF before PPF is achieved will lead fundamental challenges. The thing is, all the money is given to you by, like a Blume funds you for 18 to 24 months runway. Each product change is like 9-12 months gone. So you at only 2 possible. Even the second one, you'll have to take a small bridge round. So these are all important aspects to kind of keep in mind. Could go into this, but I think also Any questions here? Sorry, what did I do? Oh, I keep pressing wrong. Yeah, any questions here?
Not exactly on this. Hi, Sajith here.
Yeah.
So not exactly on this. In general, thanks for the talk. Once the PMF or the first version of PMF has been achieved, how much can the startup change its product to sustain?
It can do it. So, see, after PMF, you'll have to go multi-product, right? So, if you take, for example, Lattice, they started with kind of a like what do you call it? Employee engagement product, and then they layered on other aspects. They started with OKR, then employee engagement. Freshworks, they started with like in the basic customer service product, and then they added on other parts. So I think you'll have to keep adding these S curves and multiple products. So like you hit PMF for one product, but that may only get you $10-15 million in revenue. Then you need to add more. So yeah. I can take the next three questions. How do you validate propensity to pay? So I would say here, sometimes there are categories where you go to get two-stage PMF, like share chat. You get a certain set of users first, then you try and monetize. Ideally, I would say more and more, unless you have, like you've got a lot of money, try and monetize early. You can also, instead of, there are different currencies. They could be currency not through money. They could be currency by getting another person in. They write UGC content. So those are also ways in which the customer invests in the product. So those could also be proxies. How important critical is the founder to have experience and expert in the area she's building startup in? It depends on pain related. I give higher priority. Many VCs give higher priority because it just makes success easier. But I mean, ask the kids at Zepto how much expertise they had. Ask Mark Zuckerberg. I think the the generational startups, there's no expertise. Patrick Collison, what fintech expertise did they have? I want to reconcile how my immediate wedge in GTM with a larger, longer term vision. Yeah, I think wedge is to get you into the market. I think that I gave the example of dev tools and this. Your product will change. A lot of companies which look like what they are today were very different when they started. You have to solve today's problem. You have to live 18 months at a time, of course, with eventual ambition, etc. So I would say, like, worry about today and getting to product market fit while putting in the seeds of kind of an overall vision. Yeah.